Sorry I'm late. Sorry I'm late. Sorry I'm late. Sorry.
Sorry I'm late seems to be the common thing of my life lately, Rosanne. And Rosanne, welcome to my show.
Oh, thank you. A pleasure to be here.
I love that song. Tell me about that song. What made you write that song?
Well, it's interesting because I was at the point in time when I was working on my album, and I had many of the songs, but I didn't really have I didn't have a title for it. I couldn't figure out what it was going to be called. And I had somebody I was working with who came over that day who I had done quite a bit of work with, and he was late. And I am oftentimes late in my life, and not because I'm a poor planner. Mostly I get caught up in a conversation, or even as simple as getting caught behind a garbage truck on the way to just things happen. And I was in the kitchen and he had arrived and I said, we're going to be late. I'm always late and we're going to be late again. And I just said, I should just put in my email footer, sorry, I'm late. I should just say that so people know what to expect before I even arrive. And I thought, well, that's interesting, isn't it? That's an interesting, sorry, I'm late. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that's a really interesting title for my album, because my albums are 28 years in between. So now I had the concept of Sorry I'm Late, and very much in the same sort of pattern as I seem to work in sometimes. I walked by the piano one day and I thought, I should really write a song around that now. I mean, it's a good album, name for my album. So I just touched the keyboard a little bit and thought, oh yeah, that's interesting. I should really work. And I sat down. And about probably 4 to 6 hours, was it 6 hours later, I got up and I pretty much had that song all mapped out. And it's not sorry in an apologetic way or a regretful way. It's really just, I've had stuff going on. And it's all in the song. Even the simple line of, I had to raise the kid, I had to raise the dog. Or sorry, I had to raise the kid, I had to walk the dog. And it was just simple things like that. They all just take up time. And very much enjoyed my life for sure. But you definitely get on sidebars in your life that you didn't expect you were going to go there. And that's what happens. And when people say to me, why so many years between albums? Well, I kind of got busy. Life, just life. Yeah. And that became Sorry I'm Late.
Oh, and it's interesting because that song just really, like I said, resonates with me in my own life right now. And it could resonate with anybody because we do get so busy in our lives and we got tons of things to get done. And, and it's like, it's life. It's life. It's, what happened. It's what happens in life.
Well, it is. And I mean, all the power in having plans of what you want to do in your life, that's great. But I'm all for it. You have to enjoy the moments of your life. Like you're here now. It was an interesting thing I read at one point about the past. It's gone. It's literally gone. You can't go back. It's just gone. And the future, well, who knows what's going to happen there? It's also a bit of a void that you're working towards, but you're definitely in the moment. You're definitely in the moment. So I think you have to live your life in the moment. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, did somebody inspire you to make music, or how did you get your start or your love for music as a songwriter, as a singer?
I would, it's funny because I know this is going back a little bit, but I actually wrote my first song when I was 8. So there was just something very intuitive about me and music, to the point of when I was even 8. You know how people always say, when I grow up, I'm going to be I do recall, even when I was 8, not thinking I was going to be a singer or a songwriter. It was knowing that I was one. So, as I said, first song written at 8 years old. And my father was very musical in that he played saxophone, he played recorder, which was always fun. He played classical guitar, and it was just music's always been very much a part of my life, as have words, like to the point of books. That my father ran a number of bookstores and private library of 20,000 books. So books were definitely part of my life, and just words in general. Yeah. So that, I mean, it's just, that's sort of inspired me, is just picking up the guitar, playing violin in school. That was my first instrument, was playing violin, and then started strumming it and started, and I started playing guitar. I guess I started playing guitar when I was about 14, because I was living in Europe at the time. And my father had his classical guitar, and I just started picking up his guitar and playing with it a bit, you know? Hmm.
That's great. So when
Yeah.
you are writing and you're in that creative mindset, how does that process look? I know I've asked this question numerous times over the years with musicians and songwriters, but I'd love to hear what your mindset is during that creative process of creating the song.
Well, I would say that I do say about myself, I'm a little bit like a live wire. I'm very aware of what's going on around me. I am always either writing things down, um, based on what I feel. I'm very connected to how I feel. I'm very connected to, as I said, my environment. And I will write down lines all the time. I will write down lines that means something to me in that moment. I've now learned that I also write down what was happening in that moment that made me write the line down. Because in the past, I've looked at the line and went, what was that all about? So now, in order to pull me back to that space, when I do have time to jump into a line or a notion of a song, I will I will revisit everything about it. Like a good example would be In Paris is one of the songs on my album. And that was a moment that I had written down in a journal, and it's describing what I was thinking and feeling in that moment. And when I went back to reading in my journal, I found those thoughts and those feelings, and I wrote the song around it. So I would say I'm always a little bit in a creative space for sure. And I also find in anybody who, you know, isn't lives under their inspiration sort of thing, it's never convenient at times. It really isn't. It's sometimes you just have to stop what you're doing and go, oh, I don't want to do this right now, but you just fall. It's literally a space of, it's a focus. It's a funny kind of focus.
Do you ever get
Mhm.
waken up in the middle of the night? I do often, like I'll get waken up and it's like, oh, there's that idea. And here I have that notebook right next to me on my nightstand with a pen. And I'm like, I gotta write it down. I gotta get up and write
Yeah,
down, you know.
and you do have to write it down, because I know I've woken up in the middle of the night. It doesn't happen as much to me, the middle of the night writing anymore. I'm more the late night or early morning writer. But I remember waking up in the middle of the night with something in my head and going, I will remember this, and repeating it to myself in the middle of the night, repeating it, going, yeah, I got it. Waking up in the morning, gone like you'd never even thought it.
Yeah.
So that's, and even now, as I said, I'm always writing down. It's just even sometimes in a conversation, somebody will say something and I go, oh, that's interesting. I call them landing lines. For me, they're lines that really evoke an entire scenario. And I know that's where I want to land. I know I want to land on that sentiment and that thought. I don't know how I'm going to get there sometimes until I actually sit there and really jump back into it. But just as another point of reference, it's like Her Mother's Eyes, which is another song on my album. I knew that I wanted it to be about my daughter's wedding. And I knew that Her Mother's Eyes was one of the key things. It was about seeing it through my eyes. And the song, really, that's the landing line. And today she's the bride and she's 6 years old inside. And that's a pretty sentiment. But then I continue with In Her Mother's Eyes. So you see what I mean? It just connects it differently to whoever's listening and to myself as well. These songs are written for me primarily with the hope that it communicates to other people as well.
Oh my gosh. So out there, I don't know anything about the Canadian scene. Tell me about the Canadian scene or the music scene in Canada.
It's probably the same as the Canadian scene pretty much everywhere around the world.
Is
It's
it
a lot.
really?
Yeah, it's, people making music and trying to find their way and trying to find people to listen and trying to eke out a living, juggling a lot of, wearing a lot of hats, spinning a lot of plates. There's a lot of dues in an artist's life these days if you're endeavoring to do something with it. And then it's not like anything else, unlike anything else too, that some people just create music just because they just want to sit in their room and play music, and it's all good. That's exactly what they want to do with it, and they're fine with that. And then there are the artists that want to, share it with the world or whatever they're propelled by. And yeah, I would say it's the same everywhere for different artists, different challenges, but primarily the same climate.
How do you feel how social media has helped impacted the music industry?
How has social media impacted the music industry? Well, it's probably in some cases easier to get visibility. It's made it an interesting climate as far as there's so many players in the field now. And that again is global, that really anybody can now create a song and put it out there. And that's all good. And it's great that people explore their inspiration and they follow their passion. That's great. But it's definitely put a lot of people into the same playing field that are more or less competing for visibility or space. So it's crowded. It's a very crowded climate.
How do you when you're in a crowded climate with, tons of pop singers, how do you pivot, you know, in the industry so you can carve your way through your competitors, I would say your competitors,
Yeah.
to be that number one or that top artist?
Well, that's a very complex question.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think there are artists that are truly artists through and through. You sort of live your life as an artist and you write and you don't just adopt it to try to be successful at it. Does that sound right?
No,
You
that
don't
does.
just
I understand.
Yeah, you don't just adopt it. It's the life you lived. And it's like I work with a lot of artists on their projects as well and write with them. And I work with a lot of younger artists that I also mentor, I guess, at this point in time in my life. And I'm always saying to the people I'm working with, you have to love what you do first. If you don't love this and you're in it for the wrong reasons, you can't last because it's too hard. Because there's a lot of struggle. There is, it's kind of just pegged on artists, isn't it? There's a lot of struggle, and you have to love what you do. You have to love it first. It's so important. It's so important. And that means as an artist, just living your life day to day and creating and trying to move forward, but being proud of what you do and happy with the environment you're creating in. Yeah, and getting as you to your question about how do you get through, how do you break through? Patience and persistence is what I say this business is all about. Patience and persistence. And writing good music and doing something that is you and connects with people. It's some pretty simple things at times.
I
Mhm.
see, Roseanne, like even in the business world, do what you want to do. Because if you have the passion, you love doing what you do, just do it.
Yeah.
But then when you're doing it, you just have to continue on that path, whatever path you want for your life in your career, and just keep on going, but navigate where you need to navigate at.
Oh, for sure. But you know what? You have to have a plan. Like there
Yes.
has to be some form of expectation. What do you expect out of this? What would you like to do with this? What direction are you going in? And it's okay to veer a little from the path, but to not have a plan at all, I don't know, you just don't know what to act on. You're just kind of lost at sea going, well, we're in a boat. Okay, great. You're in a boat. Where are you going? We don't know. Well, we're just waiting. Waiting for what? You know? So and there's a big difference between being in music and being in the music business. I find they're totally different climates.
Mm.
Hmm. They're driven by different, they're driven by different reasons for being in them, I think. The music, but for the most part, artists really just want to create. As an artist, you want to create. And you want to, I know, as far as I can say for myself, I want to create things that I'm proud of. And that's very important to me. And the music business is a little bit different. It's like the difference between art and commercial art. Art is for art's sake. Commercial art is commercial. you know?
Was there ever a time, and I'm going to go back to the pivotal moment. Was there a time in your career, in your early years, your middle of the years, that you're like, if I don't pivot and make the changes, I won't go to the direction I want to go? Because I think every artist out there goes through that moment in their lives, or their music, their careers.
Well, I think there's been a few points for me where people didn't understand exactly what I expected for myself in the business. And as simple as here's a funny thing. I remember being on stage at one point because I spent a lot of my life playing live and with a band and touring, a lot of touring. And at one point, I remember somebody suggesting maybe it was an idea to wear less clothing on stage. And I said, well, I guess you've misinterpreted why I'm on the stage. Like and that was when I was quite young. And so there's been definite moments in my life that have told me why I'm here and what I'm doing and what my thinking, it's personal to you, of why you're there. Now, my first album came out 28 years ago, I guess. It must be 29 years ago now. And when that album came out, I think my daughter had just been born. So I was pregnant through a lot of the journey of the album and stopped for a bit. And then when the album came out, I got sidelined. I did. Thought I'd be fine. I was like, I'm good. I even said to my manager, don't worry, I got this, because he was a little concerned. Well, gonna have children. I'm like, no, I got this. I have a lot of energy. And it wasn't about the energy. It was all of a sudden, my passion changed. So there's an example of you need to love what you do to keep your foot in it. And I just decided at that point in time, I was going to shelve my album, which I did. I called up Sony and said, at this point in time, I just want to put it on the shelf for a little bit, because I very much wanted to enjoy being a parent. I wanted to really embrace that, and I didn't want to go back on the road. The business is also, as I said, it's got its challenges that you're always fighting a bit of a uphill battle. And so I stepped out, and I was always still writing for me. I was asked at that point in time if I'd write for other people, and I was like, no, I only write for me. And I very much embraced being a mother, and I actually started a branding firm, advertising and branding firm, which is funny because it's not dissimilar to what I do now with songwriting. It's talking to people and finding out who they are and what it is we need to do for them. And so I stepped out for a little while, and my daughter, and it was all great. And as time went on, I was, as I said, still writing. Always been the writer, still writing my own music. But I kind of had resigned to the fact that I didn't really want to be the artist again. Thought, I think I'm done with that. I think I'd like to just focus on my writing. And I had an opportunity to write some songs in a challenge. It was a songwriting challenge, and my daughter was a little older then, and she was also a ballerina, which took up a lot of my time. Just running her around the country and auditions and just be parenting. Parenting takes up a lot of time, and
Yes.
it does. It's the sorry I'm late, exactly. So I had the opportunity, and I stepped back in and I started writing. For those 6 weeks, I wrote 6 songs. And it was like a switch went back on in my brain, and all I wanted to do was write. But I didn't want to go back out as an artist. I just wanted to write songs I didn't even know what I was going to do with them at that point. But what I did was I started calling up producers and saying, okay, I'm ready to start writing with some people now. I like the idea of working with other people who can't articulate they're great singers or they're great artists, but they're looking for some help in articulating their feelings, really was what it was. And that's what I started doing. I started working with a very diverse range of people. It wasn't just, stepping into one genre, it was stepping into many. And so that's what I've been doing for a good portion. So that was a very pivotal moment. And the way I got back to being me again was I'd written a song called I'm Poetry, which is funny. It never even made it to the album, but it was a song I wrote. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to get someone else to sing this. But I knew how connected I was to that song. I was really connected to it. And I kept getting people to sing it, but I never liked it. It was like, no, that's not working. And my producer said to me, maybe this is your song to sing. And I was like, oh, no. No, I'm not singing this. And anyway, I ended up singing it because he said, maybe this is your song. Yeah, just sing it. So I did. And then I thought, that's interesting. Maybe I'll do a video around this song. And I had another friend who kept saying, well, so when are you going to do the CD? I'm like, no, I'm just doing this one song. And he was like, yep. And sure enough, not too long after that, with writing with people, which I love. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love working with people to find their heart in a song and to have them sing what we've written and to be behind them, supporting them to move them forward. But I also had all my own songs, and I thought, I want to be current. I don't want to be my album from 28 years ago. I want to be me now. So I decided to put out the album, and Sorry I'm Late certainly worked on a number of fronts.
And I want to bring this up. You're a mother, I'm a mother. And
Yeah.
it's interesting when we become mothers, like sometimes where we're at in that chapter of our lives, uh, it we change our what we want to do in our lives for that brief moment because we want to be there for our kids. And it's just interesting to hear you talk about your daughter and that you just wanted to be a parent at that moment and the mom and be there for her. And I went through the same thing with my kids. And it's just I think each chapter of our lives and what we go through and what happens in our lives and having children, boy, it just I love just seeing growth, or not even growth, but the going through the different chapters.
Mhm.
And I just, yeah, you just brought me back at the time when my kids were little and making that choice of, am I going to do that? No, I don't want to do that right now, even though I wanted to do it. And, that just, and, it's who we are as mothers.
Well, and you know what, do you kind of, I know it's busy. It's always busy as a
Yes.
mom, but it's quite lovely to take the time to just back to that moment thing again. It's because I know when my daughter was younger, I would catch myself saying, just a minute. She'd ask me something, just a minute, just a minute. And I heard myself say it enough times that I went, I don't want to say that anymore. So she would ask me
Mm.
something and I would not say just a minute and just say, okay. and listen.
Yeah.
But that's just a very conscious thing for me of slowing down enough to go, I'm here now. I'm just going to listen to this now. And it's a small thing, but it was a huge thing for me in just being in that moment of, okay, I'm accessible. I'm here now. Yeah.
And the words just a minute is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the same thing. Probably all moms at some point, as being moms and our kids are little, we're like, just a minute. And for me, it was the same way because I realized when they were little and I have 4 children, I was like, wait a minute, I'm putting them off and they're my children and everything else was was more important. And I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking that at the time, but I finally realized it. And there were times I would tell whoever I was talking to or stop what I was doing to just listen to my kids
Yeah.
and just
It's,
go, what I'm here for you.
yeah. Like
What do you
now.
want to tell me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are, of course, they're the priority in your life. And it's just,
Yes.
there's such a priority, like, it's just like crazy. And to just take the time, like when I was running one of my company, as I mentioned, I remember somebody that was working for me came in and she said, I gotta say, and this just came out of the blue. She said, I very much respect that whenever I tell you your daughter is on line 2, it doesn't matter what you're doing or who you're talking to, you take that call. You always take the call. I never say, it was because you never know, right? I don't know. It was usually, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's okay. Well, but that was for it to stand out for somebody to say, I've noticed that you always take that call when it comes through. You can be in the middle of the conversation with the president, the CEO of something, and you'll say, excuse me, I have to take a call for a second.
Mhm.
And that says how it works a little bit, doesn't it?
Yes. What is your daughter now that she's older and what is her memories of you? Because she's got to look at you and go, oh my gosh, my mom's a singer, songwriter, and has been
That
successful.
it's funny, because I wonder about it because she just lives in it every day. It's very much part of her life. It's not, it's just the climate she's used to is people come over and I'm writing with people and songs are happening here and this is happening there. It's just the norm for her. As I said, she was a ballerina for quite a while there. And even to that point, I put her in ballet so she'd know when she was young, 4 years old, she was in ballet. And I just wanted to know what it felt like to dance, just that. Well, being probably my daughter to some degree, she just took it on as this is what I'm going to do. And she followed it through. She went to National Ballet School. She ended up dancing at Alvin Ailey at the school there. She was, just always dancing. But I always said to her, you know, I never put you in this to make a career out of it. I just wanted you to know what it felt like. But she loved it. She did. And I said, if you ever want to stop, just let's just talk about it. But she also knew that she couldn't quit in the middle. I don't like the commitments or commitments to some degree, but you have to at least follow through on something. But
Yeah.
one day she came home from New York and she said, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, yeah, sure. She said, I want to do something different now. I was like, that's fine. It's good. I mean, she was amazing. She was amazing, but she had other things in her life that she wanted to do. Photography was a big thing for her. And she's always been on the other end of my camera for growing up. So, she sort of fell into photography sort of intuitively as well. But she now runs her own, she's running her own company now, a virtual company. And yeah, it's good.
That
It's
is wonderful. Isn't it great when you see, I mean, for me, seeing all my kids grow up and living their life in purpose in what they, you know what I mean? They're just successful in what they do because they love what they're doing.
Yeah, and isn't it great when they do things that are not you? I love that
Yes.
my daughter
Yes.
loved she loved cross country running, and I couldn't even relate to it. And I was like, that is so good that you are that she was her own person. I love that she was her own person always. And I was very aware of that also when she was a pretty quiet kid. So I was always very aware of it when she would always ask me what I thought. What do you think? And I was like, well, what do you think? Because I didn't want her to always gauge it off of my opinion. I wanted her to think for herself. Yeah. So it's cool.
That is really cool. I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you your song Because of Me. What made you write that? I love that song, by the way. Or I love all your songs, but I really love that one as well.
Because of Me is a complicated song. It's complicated because it really is about a relationship. And it's a relationship that became sort of complex. It was a friendship, but it became complex in that there was another person on the outside of that relationship that didn't want to see that relationship happen, didn't want to see that friendship,
Mm.
didn't want to see that closeness. But it was interesting because that person, whenever I had spent time with them, they would go back to the other person in a better state of mind.
Oh,
And it was feeding something in that person that it was just feeding something in that person that they were enjoying. And I think it was a challenge. I know it was a challenge for the other person. And it became detrimental to the relationship for sure. It ended the relationship. So that's what that song came out of, was Because of Me.
when you were
Mhm.
writing that, were you tearing up? Were you just emotional in writing that and thinking about that relationship and that person?
I wrote that song as if that person was sitting right in front of me. When I write my songs, a lot of my songs are very conversational, and I am in the moment of 100% feeling what I'm feeling and seeing what I'm seeing. I can see the environment around me or the person in front of me. And that's that song for sure. It was the conversation with that person right in front of me. Hmm.
I can imagine as you're
Hmm.
writing that. Would if there's anything that you could change about the music industry, what would it be?
It is a music business, but I think there's a lot of flaws in the way it's run as a business. And that's my business brain kicking in. Songwriters are not recognized in this business to the extent they should be. Um, it's very much taken for granted that people write songs, and I don't think people understand how undervalued songwriters oftentimes feel in this business. With everybody is compensated on a song. The people who produce it, for the most part, this is, I mean, that I'm painting with a big brush right now, but the producers are compensated, players are compensated all the way through. But if it comes down to the songwriter at the core, that's a seed. Like there's no song, there's no business. But it seems to be sort of overlooked at times of recognizing them or compensating them. And
Yeah,
it's something I'm definitely working. It's something I've definitely taken on as something I am trying to change. Yeah.
that's wonderful. Now, what do
Yeah.
you have coming up? Do you have dates for you to go and perform? Do you got new album that you're working on to come out?
Well, at this point in time, the album, because how many songs are on there? I think there's 11 songs on the album. I should know that. We are still in the process of sharing each track with the world. And one of the songs that I just had some great news on was the Give Me One More Night, which was a song we created a video around because I love creating art. And, again, pride in what you're doing. And so we've been pointing to each song individually and building sort of a mini campaign around them. Even though the album's out, I still think there's great value in pointing people to the songs to go, hey, you didn't hear this one. Like, you've heard Because of Me, you've heard Sorry I'm Late. I don't know if you've heard Her Mother's Eyes, but it is a song that we're going to, once again, build a campaign around. So I'm still promoting this album, probably for this year. And then, yes, I will. It's not going to be 28 years between albums again, that's for sure. But in the meantime, as I mentioned, I'm also working with many people on their own projects. So I just had a single come out with an artist I'm working with. His name's Marshall Dane. And the song is called No Need to Speak. And again, heartfelt, beautiful song that I'm so proud to be part of with him. And it's sort of the beginning of a catalog of songs. So that feels good. And I'm also working with another young woman from Egypt. And yeah, just I've got all those. So as far as performing, no, I don't, I'm not out actively touring at this point in time. I do want to go out and do something at some point, but it's not burning, it's not a burning need for me right now. As much as it would be fun, there's only so much time. And yeah, I'm not doing that at
And
the
I
moment.
love when you talk about each song you're building. It's almost like building its own life, because I know I've worked with a singer, and I continue to do it when each of his songs come out, a single comes out. And sometimes one of the songs, on the album gets lost in the shuffle because they're concentrated and like, oh, this is going to be the song that's going to be the number one for
Mhm.
the album. And I love the fact that you're creating its own identity on each of the songs on an album, so they all get that spotlight. And I love that.
Yeah, well, it's like all those songs. I didn't write songs that were just to fill a space.
Right?
These songs all mean so much. They all have their own stories, and I think there's value to pointing people to it, to say, hey, did you miss it? Which is so easy to do in this world out there. There's so easy not
Yes.
to see things, and yeah. So that's what I'm doing. And we're pointing to each song and telling the story of why I wrote it and what it means, and yeah, the story around the song. That's another thing is very important to me, is sort of speaking to what you know when you're writing songs, and what is it you're sharing with people and why.
Yes. And I want to mention this. Sorry, I'm late. I have sent that to at least 30 people,
Oh, gee,
because
thank
I
you.
felt like they would tell me, like, I'd be on the phone with them or seeing them, and they'd be like, oh, you just my day the other day, or whatever. They're telling me about how their day was or how their week's going. I'm like, I got a great song for you.
Well,
And
and
it's
people, yeah, and people love the bridge. I don't know what your thoughts are on the bridge, but all the years that just go by so quickly.
yes.
And
Oh, they
it's
do. Too much. And through that, songs are great because either brings memories or help us get out of whatever we're feeling at that moment.
Well, and that's the reason for my writing these. It
Yes.
is to give people, because I have the voice, right? And I don't mean singing voice. I
Oh,
mean just,
you are very talented.
but I mean a voice, a speaking voice, a lyric voice, the voice of being able to share feelings for people to go, that's how I feel. And I love
Yes.
that. I love,
Yes.
because I think it in this, again, big world, it gives people a sense of, I'm okay. There's somebody else, it's not just, you're not isolated. There's something relatable to you. You go, that's exactly how I feel. Wow. So because other people feel like that. I mean, it's
They
just,
do.
of
They do.
course,
They
with
do.
moms in particular, there's, yeah, mom.
Yes.
But to hear it and go, oh yeah, me too. I was on that road, and now what happened? I got kind of lost on
Yes.
another one. Pages and pages. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I want to thank you so much. And I want to say this briefly before we end the show. And that is, I love your videos for your songs.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
like you said, has its own life.
Yeah.
And watching them, you anybody that's watched them will feel something and feel like they understand that song and they can relate to that song.
That's great. Well,
Any of
thank
your
you.
songs.
Thank you very much. Well, they're pretty down to earth for the most part, right? They're
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Authenticity
Roseanne, thank you for being a guest on my show. I want you back. So like let's do update later this year.
for sure. Oh, there's for sure. Would love to talk to you again.
I want to remind my audience, go to rbtsong.com. Definitely follow Rosanne, and that is Rosanne Baker
Yeah,
Thornley on social media. I'm laughing because I spelled your name on one of the songs, Roseanne, and it's because I'm dyslexic. And so your manager he emails me, he's like, it's Rosanne. I'm like,
yeah,
so I had to
I
fix
know.
it. And I'm like,
That-
I'm dyslexic. But anyways,
yeah, no E in the
and
middle, E at
definitely
the end.
yeah, and definitely stream Roseanne's music. Thank you for thank you for listening today and enjoy your day. I leave you with the song Because of Me. Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you, Stacy.
It's been wonderful.
Yes, it's been great. Thanks very much.